All right, turnout is actually looking good. So you know what, I think it's safe for me to go ahead and start. So as you can see from my screen share, if you are here to, also get your certificate for your 2 CEs, you got to make sure that you sign up at this site. There's a screenshot of what it looks like when you sign up. And then there's also a little picture of the certificate that you get for participating, for attending. But even if you attend, if you do not sign up at this site, it will not generate a certificate for you. I do not create these certificates. They are automatically generated from this website. So I'm going to type it in the chat and I'm going to repeat it a few times, which I apologize to those who don't need the repetition, but it does bear repeating, trust me. So meetup.intellectualpoints.com, sign up there. And if you might have signed up few days ago and you're just not certain, if you're like, did I sign up with the right name, with the right email, typed out correctly, just go ahead and sign in again. It doesn't hurt. What does suck is if you think you signed up and then you didn't actually sign up correctly and the generator does not generate and send out the certificate to you. I don't create them, so I won't be able to create one for you, even if I know that you attended. So it's very important. That's why I do repeat this over and over again. So go to that link, make sure you sign up so that you can get your certificate. It automatically generates. And if it doesn't get sent for whatever reason, let me know. I will try to look for it for you. It might take me a minute. I'll look 2-3 times, but there's not a friendly search engine for me to search your name and find it. I have to go through each certificate that gets generated and look for your name that way. So it does take me a little bit to look for yours if yours did not get sent to you and you're sure that you signed up. And if I cannot find it for whatever reason, then I'm sorry, folks. It might be a technical issue on either our part, your part. I will not be able to create it for you. Alrighty, so now that that's taken care of, again, so you go to that link, meetup.intellectualpoints.com, and this is what it looks like. And you just click where it says click here, and then you just fill it out, name, email, and everything, and then it will automatically create a certificate for you for your 2 CEs, okay? And that's for every single meetup, okay? And again, that's different from RSVPing via Digital Native's website. It's 2 different things, just so you know. And this is just showing, again, our very popular courses from the AWS and CompTIA product lines. We are and have been platinum partners with CompTIA for a very long time, and we're quite proud of that. So we do offer, a lot from their product line. And we also have CEH, ITIL, SysP, just to name a few. Is there a question or is that a hot mic? Sounds like a hot mic. Okay. Yep. So before we have our guest speaker start, I want y'all to make sure that your mics are muted and that your video is turned off so that we can provide, courtesy and undivided attention to our guest speaker. So make sure that you're not accidentally, unmuting yourself. Okay. So we also have our UiPath product line, very popular classes. We also offer private training if you have a group of 10 or more people who want to take some classes with us. Make sure you reach out to us, info@intellectualpoints.com, letting us know your needs, and we can arrange that for you, okay? Also, be sure to check out our 2024 course calendar. We're actually going to revamp this because we recently got GI Bill approval. So, be on the lookout. There's going to be some updates coming for you soon. You'll just have to go to the website and, stay updated. And so if you need CE credits, I suggest RSVPing to every single one of the Digital Natives meetups so that you can accumulate CEs. And so make sure you go to digitalnatives.com. Here, let me put that link in the chat, actually. It's actually meetup.com/digital natives. Let me go ahead and get that link in the chat for you guys, because some of you might have heard about this seminar from somewhere else. And so you might not be registered. But anyway, sign up there and make sure to RSVP to all the meetups, and that way you can be in the know. So this summer, STEM workshops, these are really popular and really fun. There's like 6 of them this year. There's a 3D printing one. There's a RoboMaster one. We also have a build a custom gaming PC one this year. It's lots of fun, and it's recommended for ages 13 and up. So if you're older than 13, you can certainly sign up. And I mean, you're going to be with some younger folks, but it's a lot of cool things to learn, and you get to keep the equipment, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so make sure you tell everybody about it. If you're not able to sign up yourself, let someone know. Our STEM workshops are these. I mean, I've played with the equipment. I'm in there myself. I help run these, and it's a whole lot of fun. Again, want to reiterate, meetup.intellectualpoints.com for your certificate. Okay, don't forget, guys. I know there's some people who are still filtering in here, so if you weren't here if you just got in here a couple minutes ago, please meetup.intellectualpoints.com if you're trying to get your 2 CEs for attending this seminar. Alrighty, and that's the end of my spiel. So I'm about to turn it over to RedHatAugust. Anthony, are you ready for us?
Yes, I'm ready. And of course, I hide the screen away so I couldn't go off a mute. But yes, I am ready. So hey everybody, I'm Anthony RedHatAugust Radzikavage. I didn't do an introductory slide. I need to start sharing my screen though, yeah. But just a little bit about me. I've been a professor at a local community college for 10 years. The Linux program lead instructor there. I built the course. It's been long standing for 8 years without any significant changes, which is super uncommon when it comes to technology courses. So I'm pretty proud of that. I also do Linux system administration over there. I teach that course. I had to hand off my intro to Linux to some of our other adjuncts that are there because I pivoted over to information security or cyber security, whatever you want to call it. The last job that I was at before having the wonderful opportunity of joining Intellectual Point was at OffSec, and I was a content developer with them for 2 years. I helped with the PWK Reimagine. That's the Pen 200 course. It's the one you go take for the OSCP exam. A wonderful opportunity. Very great people over there. And I also had a really big part in the Pen 100 material that they offer. But as you see, across the entire globe in technology, layoffs happen. I was subject to that, so I'm no longer there. But hey, when one door closes, another one opens. So my grandfather used to say that, great man, terrible cabinet maker. With that, though, out of the way, I am here to talk to y'all about the kind of Linux essentials as I see it. And of course, hold on. I've only been using Zoom for a while now, and still that gets me every time. Um, but I just want to do like a review of some Linux concepts, showcase some things that I think are interesting, go into a little bit of log analysis, go into a little bit of attacks, just 2 of them and what that looks like on a Linux target. So the idea here is there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, I haven't used Linux, like I don't know what Linux is. Why is this important, or why could it be important? Why can it enhance me and my career? Hey, Jose, good to see you, man. So if you don't know, I am also an instructor with Intellectual Point. I've been teaching the Linux Plus courses since the beginning of the year, and a lot of my audience are going to be some of my current students, some of my former students. So they'll kind of tell you, what's going on. Yeah. And Eric's dropping the line. We're probably gonna have a lot of inside jokes here. Hold on a second. Nothing like coughing right into the mic, so didn't want to do that for you. So let me do some real fast, and just so you're aware of how I want to treat this presentation, just as all my students would say, at Intellectual Point and outside of that, I am a very, very hands-on person when it comes to learning, right? I have a firm belief that you're not learning operating systems, you're not learning programming, you're not learning configurations, system administration, you're not learning operating systems, you're not learning networking truly, doing configurations, unless you are doing it. Now, this is going to be a presentation where I'm showcasing things. I'm not going to be waiting and, all right, everybody, let's install Linux and do that. But I will be flipping back and forth between the slides and my virtual machine, my Kali host over here. Let me swap this. Got to do that. There we go. So you can see what I'm talking about, because otherwise the presentation is like, here are some commands. And it's kind of lame. I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna be doing this. Will I be presenting as though we are all entry level and not subject matter experts? Yes, that's my hope. That is my hope. However, I am going to go into some things that it's like, whoa, what the heck is going on? But it's not going to be anything super sophisticated. I'll try to explain it as well as I can. And here's the deal, right? I love the question. And I definitely want to have an opportunity here where I'm not just showing you something and be like, oh, wow, look how cool that is, right? But that you're understanding what's going on. However, as I tell my students, I'm not a mind reader, right? I've been doing this for a really long time, but still, there's so many different walks of life and different perspectives and different understandings that I just certainly can't know all of humanity. Gosh, I wish I did. So it's really easy. If you have any questions, shoot them off in the chat. If you think I went through something too quickly, put it in the chat. I'll try to look over there, from time to time, like I see right now. I noticed your question. Just please feel free to ask things. If I can answer it, I will. If I'm like, yeah, that's out of scope, I'll let you know. If it's like crazy complicated and I'm like, it'd probably take a little too much time, I'll also let you know. Or simply put, if I don't know the answer, I'll also let you know that too. I think that's a valuable asset of people as well. You can ask my students when I talk about the, server admin. Well, I studied 20 years to put up a web server. Like, no, it's anyway, whatever. I'm not that guy. All right. So if I can share some information with you and it's not understandable, please just stop me. Let me know. But yes, I'm going to start off what I consider um, pretty rudimentary, right? And then I'm going to build up and say, okay, well, why is this important or why are these things useful, right? So, great question and thank you. So again, I'm Anthony RedHatAugust Radzikavich. I'm going to repeat it for Leanne's sake, and I know we're repeating it a bunch, but go to meetup at intellectualpoint.com if you want those CE credits, right? CEUs, CUs, I don't know. It depends on what certifying body. They all call it CPEs. They all call them something different. You want the credit for that. You want the certificate. Make sure you sign up there. Okay. All right. So let's get started. To begin, we need to talk about, well, actually, what am I going to talk about here? Let's just talk about what we're talking about, right? Meta, meta presentation. So I'm going to start like really basic. What the heck is Linux anyway? Right? Then move on to where is Linux used? Why are we using it? Where can we see it? Do you use Linux every single day? Spoiler alert. You do. You don't use it as an administrator, but trust me, you touch a Linux system every single day. I promise you. Then I'm going to just really briefly cover some Linux distributions for cybersecurity or information security, then some other distributions that are related to the field that maybe you just want to check out. Not going to go in depth, just going to list them out for you so you can look that up on your own, go install them, go experiment with them, see what they're all about. Then I'm going to just cover some like a really short list of some interesting files or important files that a penetration tester like me generally looks for first, right? And then go into basic commands, just list those off, and then I'm going to start showing things. Then Linux text editors, why is that important? Working in the command line, We're going to move into creating a user list with everything that we've covered before, right? The commands. We can do it with the text editor. I can show you how much easier it is when you're manipulating the command line to get output, or to get certain outcomes when you're using the Linux operating system. So that'll also lead to an introduction to scripting. What are these people, what are they doing when they write all of these tools? Right? Somebody wrote linpiece, for instance. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. It's a script, it's just a shell script, and it's really, really great. But I'm hoping that I demystify what scripting is, but also show the incredible power that you have when you start developing your own tools. Because trust me, you have something that repeats itself, you do it over and over and over again, just make it into a file. Throw that into a file. You got your own program, start building it out. And then you can build yourself up to what linpiece is, gradually over time. You can do even more things outside of that, of course, right? But it's like the world's your oyster, and then start making tools. Then we're going to talk about accessing a remote Linux server. There's various ways to do that, but the big focus that I'm going to have is SSH. Right? I want to talk about securing that, and I also want to talk about abusing that security, and what to think about and what not to think about when you're attacking SSH, because we'll get there. And then we'll wrap this up with some Linux log files. Specifically, I'm going to go over like the list. Generally, this is what it is, but we're going to be looking at web logs, and we're going to be parsing some of that information out of those web logs for some interesting information, we'll say, right? So there's something that we're going to do. We're going to do some attack simulations with that log analysis to show what that attack looks like in the logs. And again, what are we using? We're using the command line. We're using manual commands just to filter it out. Okay, so a lot of questions on the slides being available after the presentation. We are recording this session, and the slide deck will be available in the follow-up email. So again, make sure you're registered to get those CEs and to get the information for that as well. Okay, so let's get started. What in the world is Linux? Well, I put here that it's an operating system by Linus Torvalds in 1991. Right? Technically, it's not an operating system. It's a kernel. It's like the mitochondria of the cell. It's the powerhouse of the cell, the beating heart of what the operating system runs on. But ever since Linus made Linux as the kernel, despite Richard Stallman's, we'll say, disgruntlement about it, and I don't blame him, we've just called it Linux ever since, as a simplification of the entirety of it. Now, the cool thing about this is we get into a little bit of the background here. All right. What I consider to be the godfather operating system, something you may have heard of, is called Unix, right? Uni, interface. One, right? One user, and it's a command line, and this is like the beginning of all operating systems. Well, there was a professor named Andrew S. Tannenbaum, and he was teaching operating systems to his students. Well, what did Unix do? Unix said, okay, our source code, our program that makes our operating system, we're closing the door. You cannot see our source code anymore. So Andrew S. Tannenbaum had an issue. He's like, well, how can I teach operating systems without showing the code that operating systems run on? And so he developed something called Minix, where it was the minimal version of Unix. We call those flavors, right? A flavor of Unix. And Linus took Minix and developed Linux. And if you guessed it, Linux, right? And you can call him Linus, Linus, whatever. He doesn't really care, but Linux is Linux. You don't believe me? It came from his mouth. Go check out Revolution OS. But what is cool about this, we'll call it a movement, is The source code in this is free and open source. It's free as in freedom, not necessarily free as in free beer, but free as in freedom. What does that mean? You can change it, you can copy it, you can redistribute it, so long as you follow the same exact licensing as what you received it in, which is generally the GNU GPL. Oh, yes. And what the heck is a kernel? Again, I'm trying to simplify it where it's the mitochondria of the cell, the powerhouse of the cell, right? It's this central component to an operating system that allows software and hardware to interact with each other. It's the centralized communicator. Now, this is where Richard Stallman comes in because he founded GNU and the Free Software Foundation, right? So he's like, oh, we should call it Linux with GNU because the kernel allowed all of his stuff, the stuff that we're actually using, right? The GNU stuff to communicate with each other. And Linus just built him to building that essentially a translator between, again, the hardware and the software that runs on the computer. Hey, listen, Jeremy, I appreciate your notion. But at the same time, you know, I'm trying to satisfy as many audience members that we get. But like I said, we all come from different walks of life. I will definitely try to ramp this up for you at the end, as I covered with some log analysis. All right. Now, if that's too, how would I say, minimal, I mean, just contact me later and I'll see what you're looking for. Yeah. But either way, this is what Linux is. This is what we this is what we're using in so many systems. Okay. Oh my God. So here's the point, right? It's free, open source. You can modify it. You can with that, you're customizing, you can add things, you can take it away, you can tailor it to fit your need. And you know what we call those? We call those distributions. We took the base of something and we framed it to what we want to have happen. What is our goal? And we were able to do that freely. Again, free as in freedom, not necessarily free as in free beer. And again, we can share it. Now, can you do that with something like Microsoft? No, it's closed source. Now, am I ripping on Microsoft? Absolutely not. Not right now. Not in this context. But again, this is a huge, huge movement in the IT space, just in general. And also think about that tailoring. Think about that tailoring, right? But where is this? I'm telling you at the very beginning, you know, where is Linux being used? It is everywhere. As I said in the very beginning, you touch Linux every single day and you don't even know it. Well, maybe you do. Maybe I shouldn't say that, right? Maybe that's unfair. But you touch it every single day. The cloud market share is dominated by Linux servers. The Internet of Things, yeah, it's comprised of Linux distributions. The underlying systems are Linux based. What do I mean by that? Like if you get into like the heart of Cisco gear, guess what's in there? Linux. If you get into the heart of, other networking equipment, guess what? You get into security appliances, guess what? A lot of them are powered by Linux. I mean, for crying out loud, whoops, see, I'm getting too excited. I'm pushing the keys now. For crying out loud, some of you may not have, an Apple phone, which probably means that you're running Android, and Android is a Linux kernel. So some of you are using Linux in your pocket and you carry it with you everywhere you go, every single day. So we're talking Linux is in data centers. It's in, again, I keep saying information of things, Internet of Things, like the Nest, thermostat, cameras, even refrigerators. I put turnstiles in here. Why? because even those are powered by Linux. You have it everywhere. Okay. And yes, Dwayne, Apple is based on Unix. That's one of the reasons why Apple was so expensive. And then they pivoted over to FreeBSD. So it's not Linux. But if you open up, you have a Mac, and you open up a terminal, you'll realize that generally speaking, that's the Bourne shell. Right? It'll say bin sh. And if you learn the commands with Linux, you know the commands on Mac. Well, give or take, you'll know the skills to be able to do a lot of things on a Mac as well. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. So what are some penetration testing distributions? Well, listen, I came from OffSec, near and dear to my heart. I like dragons, so I gotta list out Kali Linux first, right? Kali Linux is a very, very popular Linux distribution for penetration testing. I got to speak with the Kali guys. I'd like to consider one of them a really good friend of mine now. Really amazing cat, super cool dude. Not only a great hacker, but he's just a great guy. Uh, but Kali Linux is made by the people from OffSec. Now, there's also a competitor to Kali that's been up and coming. TryHackMe uses this distribution. It's called Parrot OS. I don't have a lot of experience there, but I've seen it. It looks pretty cool. A lot of people are using it, and this is just a preference issue, but these are the two main ones that I see out in the wild that people are using and people are learning. So there's also Black Arch, there's Arch Strike, there's Pen2, and trust me, there's a bunch more. I know of a bunch more, but I don't know if they're being actively developed. So I'm like, I was told I was an old school hacker when I joined OffSec. I was like, "No, I don't think so." But as the years pass, I'm starting to believe what they were telling me. Okay, so let's see what we got. Parrot is like Kali Light. Again, I'm not super familiar with it. I've used it a couple times. Doesn't seem bad. Doesn't seem bad. Trying to get away from iOS and Windows as fast as you can. That's good. I mean, it's all right. I like Windows because development happens for a lot of applications that I use on Windows. But when it comes to server administration, when it comes to penetration testing, yeah, I'm pretty strong on the Linux side. Okay, here we go. Now, what are some other distributions to note? Well, I put Kali again. You're like, hey, Anthony, like lay off of the Kool-Aid, dude. Eh, all right. The reason I'm putting Kali purple here is because I think this is really cool. I was there at the company when this is happening. But OffSec is like, hey, can we start integrating blue team tools inside of our red team tool? All right, can we just start mixing all of the packages together? So they came out with Kali Purple. Really neat additions if you can handle, the little bit extra space. The space doesn't cost nearly as much as it used to. I'd really recommend you check it out, right? Maybe instead of just doing the normal Kali installation, try a Kali Purple and see if you like it. And then see if you can, just like this presentation, where we'll go through some offensive stuff, and then you can pivot over to some defensive stuff because this will have both of those tools. All right. There's another one called Backbox. You can use that for penetration testing. You can use it for a little bit of anonymity. And then Tails and Hunix are specific for anonymity, meaning, being anonymous online. I'm not going to get into the whole reasons why people would do that, but some target demographics of these operating systems might be something like reporters, where anonymity in making the reports or doing investigations is literally a matter of life and death for these people. That's all I'm going to go into that. And then there's another one called Remnux, which is used in the blue space to do like reverse engineering of malware. So it's not an offensive distribution, but I definitely felt that these are some other distributions that you should check out, play around with, see what they do, and then at the very least, be aware that these exist and that, yes, they are actively being used. Excuse me. Yeah, Kali Purple is all of Kali is free. It's just, yeah, it's there. Red versus blue team. Great. Thank you so much for asking me the question. I throw these terms out like I've been doing this for a minute, right? Um, red v blue is, as far as I know, like a lot of information security based on military concepts. Red is the offensive, the attacking team. Blue is the defending team. So when you have people working in a SOC, a security operations center, we consider them to be on the blue side because they're looking at the logs, they're filtering that out, they're building the detections, they're doing the response. Digital forensics information or incident response. I don't know why I'm stuck on information today. I'm sorry, people. But defer, right? They're doing all of that. That's the blue side, the defensive side. People like me, more traditionally, penetration testers, the ethical hackers, right? Who are trying to break into an organization, write up a report and say, yep, this is the chink of your armor here. This is a way you might be able to remedy it. This is how I got in. Giving that information, again, with permission, in writing. Make sure you're staying ethical and legal. All right. But we are the attackers, the red side of things. And then, of course, there's purple, which simply is, hey, can an attacker work with the defenders? And alongside working intellectual point, I am in a purple team role now where I get to use my offensive hacking skills to enhance the defensive work. And honestly, I think that's where we should all be going in terms of bettering global security in general. Because what is the goal, or what should be the goal? A defender is to defend the network, right? So obviously, their goal is to protect the network. But as an ethical hacker, what should my goal be? Break into an organization. Why? So that they can be more secure at the end of the day. It's not to make me look super cool and be like, I got in, right? It's to help the organization realize where their weak points are. So why not work both sides? Now, another thing as well, penetration testing, I'm going to split the terms further. Penetration testing versus red teaming are a little bit different, meaning penetration testing is breaking into the network and doing all these things that I said. But like, we don't care. We are super loud about it. We're like, I'm going to send this scan that's going to send, 65,535 packets at you in about 5 seconds. It's super loud, right? Any detection should be able to pick up what you're doing because we're not trying to be secretive about it. But red teaming is where we start getting into a little bit more sophisticated attacks. Maybe we're doing things in memory versus putting files on the computer. We're trying to be cognizant of bypassing controls and monitoring solutions that the blue team has up, right? Our whole goal is to do it so that we are not noticed. So that goes even further. Okay, let's see. What's physical? I consider physical penetration to be part of a red team engagement. Traditionally, penetration testing is, you're just on the digital frontier, if you will, right? But when it gets into physical and you start picking locks and you're doing door bypasses, I would consider that to be red. Anyway, let's keep going. So, what are some important files for me as a pen tester? Well, the Etsy password file is important. That goes with the Etsy shadow file. If I can get my hands on both of them, that's sweet. The Etsy, and I put, in little carrots here, or not carrots, but greater than, less than symbols, OS dash release, because that OS might change depending on what distribution you're on. What is that? And I'm going to talk about the other two. All right. Like, I know I skipped them, but I will go back. But the OS release will tell us what the distribution is, what version it is. It gives us more information about what platform we're on or what distribution we're on. And we can leverage that. The more information we get, that's called enumerating, then we're going to be at a stronger vantage in terms of finding things like kernel exploits, or, oh, how does this system work? Or what if I'm on a BSD system? Because trust me, those are a little bit different. I remember breaking into a BSD system once and I was like, why doesn't my command work? Yeah, so knowing what you're on definitely helps you do your research. And then Etsy cron tab, like scheduled jobs that are automatically being run. Why is that important? Because if the files of the scripts, remember I was talking about scripting in the beginning, if those are not secure, then I can leverage automated jobs to execute my code. I write whatever I want in there to, you know, invoke like maybe a reverse shell. Maybe I can get a what's called a privilege escalation from that schedule service. Or yeah, well, I'll just say schedule service. Why not? It's not a service, but yeah. So Etsy password and Etsy shadow. What the heck are these files? Etsy password is the file of which has user and system user information in it, right? We're going to look at one of these, but it has the username. It has a deprecated field, which used to store the password in clear text, and then they put a hash on it. You know, they made it a hash. But simply we removed it from that field completely, and now it's just replaced with an X. From there, you have the user ID, the group ID, the home directory, the comment, which is the full name, yada, 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 yada. The bottom line is it stores the system users and the users of the system in a really nice list. Also, this file is world readable, meaning anybody on that system, no matter their privilege set, unless there are further security controls, we can read the file. For Linux, yeah, I'm specifically talking about Linux right now. But even BSD systems have this password as well, or excuse me, this password file as well. So if you go and you cat Etsy password, you should be able to see that in Mac as well. So what's automatically translated? It's referenced on login. This is traditional login for Linux, but that's where the Etsy shadow file comes into play. Because remember how I said there's that deprecated field with the X, right? Well, they removed it and they put it in this Etsy shadow file, which is only supposed to be read by root. That stores the password in a hashed, in a hash, right? They run a hashed algorithm on it. That's a one-way execution. So when you log into a Linux system, you type in the username, right? Let's say Tom. So you type in Tom, you press enter. Tom has a really bad password of password. You type password, you press enter. What happens on the Linux system is it says, hey, is Tom a valid user? Let me reference the Etsy password file. Yeah, Tom's in there. Okay, great. Let's go look at the Etsy shadow file. Here's the hash value. Okay, what did the user put in? Password. All right, great. Take that password, run the hashing algorithm. This is my output. Okay, does that hash match the one that's in the file? Yes. Okay, let them log in. Does it not? No. Okay, they can't log in. That's a wrong credential, wrong username or password. And by the way, if you're ever going to be a developer, wrong username or password. Okay, wrong username or password. Not the username doesn't exist in this database. Trust me, take it from me. I abuse that kind of stuff. Don't do it. It's wrong username or password. Put them both. Otherwise, you're giving me more information that you don't want to. So these are important files that I look for like initially on an engagement when I get into a system. Is it possible to detect man in the middle in the browser for forensic crime case in a Linux? Oh man, you'd be able to detect like network traffic, but that's one of those things that's definitely going to be out of scope. I'd have to look further into that and exactly what you mean, right? Can you do man in the middle with browsers? Yeah, that's pretty easy in terms of if it's your computer. We do that at bug testers all the time, but from what I'm understanding, you're more say we run ettercap, we throw it on our thing, we're pretending we're the router. Hey everybody, I'm the router. And then they say, okay, cool, let's send the traffic to you then. And then you take it all in, you ingest it, you kick it off to the router and you forward that traffic, right? Typical man in the middle. But like in terms of that, you'd have to go back, you have to look at the network traffic where you're sending things to see, hey, at one time was I sending it to the router? And then all of a sudden things changed. Now, really quick tidbit, if you run ARP-A, you can see if somebody's actively doing a man-in-the-middle attack, but that's actively. If there's two IP addresses that are showing different MAC addresses, somebody's spoofing something. And autopsy is a great way to do digital forensics. You capture the disk, you run it in this application, you can find hidden files, you can find things marked for deletion, you can do all sorts of stuff with that, but that certainly is out of scope for this talk. So here's some really basic Linux commands. There's touch, which creates a new empty file or updates the timestamp if the file exists already. Okay. Now that might not seem really important, but if we use this in learning Linux as one of the first things that we do. Okay, touch. We brought life to a file. Yeah. Or touch, we updated a timestamp. What does that mean? Well, there's a little date time next to a file, and if you do it at that moment, it'll just update to whatever is when you did it, right? So I'm gonna go over this really quick, but just understand, yes, this is one of those rudimentary, very basic things, and you may see this to create newer empty files. I won't go into like the sophisticated stuff, but if you do like, file ghosting or whatever to do EDR evasion, you might see touch. I'll tell you this way. Years ago, I was teaching Windows command line. Again, a really basic, easy course, and then I was getting comments on one of my videos. Hey, how do you make empty files in Windows? And I was like, that's an odd question. Yeah, I didn't find out until years later. The reason was for malware. So it all applies. Then we have the commands to read the contents of the file. We have cat, which is short for concatenate. We have head, which is the first 10 lines of the file, unless you put an option to make it more or less. And then we have tail, which is the last part of the file, the tail end of the file. And then the same thing, default 10 lines, unless you specify more or less with the -n option. Now, some of these files are really big. And if we're in a command line, we don't have the luxury of scrolling up and down. So we needed a command to paginate the output that comes to the screen. And we have two that can do that. We have less and we have more, but more kind of sucks. So what happened is more is now just a symbolic link that points to less. I'm not going to get into the details of why more is worse than less, but less offers more opportunities to go up and down. And if you push a space bar, you go one page at a time. You get in there, you press Q, you get out. Now, CD is to change directory. You'll notice a lot of Linux commands have this kind of a pattern where it starts with the first letter of the action, or it's oh my God, a mnemonic, if you will, like C is for change, D is for directory. Okay, they might have chmod, which is ch for change. I know it's different, but mod for the mode, the permission set of Linux. And then there's echo, which displays content as standard output. But but you might think, okay, these commands are so basic. I'm like, I know, it's fine. Echo is oh my God, it is so incredibly useful if you know how to use it. We have different kind of shell sessions when we're talking about penetration testing or hacking, right? You get into a system, you have an interactive shell, which means, yeah, you got full shell and you can interact with it. You can go into a text editor and you can get out of it. This would be something like that SSH connection, right? Everything's operating per usual. But boy, you have non-interactive shells where you can't do any of that. So if I want to put a program on that computer, I have to do it with echo. I have to put it to standard output, and then I have to redirect that output into a file, and I do this one line at a time until my script is completed. It can be kind of time consuming, or like I said, I could just write a script, pop in the script if I'm able to, and then just run my script. So, Ricardo, friends don't let friends, Chmod 777. I already told you that. Stop it. So in a Linux, you also are expected to learn what's called a text editor. You probably used text editors before, like Microsoft Word, which is a whole suite. It does a big application, but that's really, really common to use. You might have used Notepad before. That's closer to Linux, right? Notepad is closer to how Linux works in file manipulations, editing. But listen, the one that you should be learning is Vi and Vim. All right. It's a bigger learning curve. I get it. I understand, but you should learn it. And then there's another one, which is Nano. Now, Vi and Vim are purely the command line interface. They have 3 modes to it. Again, I'm not here really to teach you all about Linux and how to use this and whatever, right? I'm here to showcase the importance and the value of learning Linux. Let me check the time. Yeah. I gotta keep going, right? Um, but Vi and Vim are generally going to be installed on every single typical Linux distribution. Nano is not. That's why you should learn it. More so than it's better. I mean, it is better, but you should learn it because if you have it on a system and you don't need to install it, you're leveraging what? You're living off the land. You might have heard of lol bins before, living off the land binaries. You should definitely learn how to leverage the tools that they provide you. Now, Nano is the one that some people think is easier. Most people think it's easier. And this is what we call a TUI interface, a text user interface. And it uses like the control key and then you push another key in order to take some type of action on the file. But yeah, um, but yeah, really, I highly recommend you learn Vim, get somewhat proficient in it. You will be better off. Now, remember what I was talking about, echo and echoing things into other files? Well, these are called redirections. The greater than symbol, just one of them, redirects output and replaces the file contents. If the file doesn't exist, it creates the file with that contents in it. Now, a double greater than symbol will redirect the output and append it to the file. Now, something that I felt was hilarious is I had a wonderful opportunity being a developer with a really, really, really big organization on a really secure system. I actually got to make the distribution that we used after a while. I'm not going to tell you what organization that is. I'll just leave that to your imaginations. If you look. But one of the things that they did, there's people writing applications for the system for security. So what are they doing? They're writing to logs. This is great. However, they were also adding a timestamp to the log, which makes sense. At this time, this thing happened. That's what logs generally do. Um, but when I saw it, I couldn't help myself. I just started laughing. You got to remember, these are really senior, high-level people as well. But they put the single redirect, the single redirect sign. So every single time that their application would run, they'd literally erase the entire log, the entire thing, because a single redirection like this replaces the file. So the fix was literally to put just one more. I am stressing this out because I saw it on a very, very, very secure system, actual experience I've had. Be mindful that you're not wiping your stuff out, okay? Now, the other one is the less than symbol is redirecting input. It's a little harder for me to explain, but if I wanted to run a command and provide a file to that command, then that's when I would use this. And the file contents itself would be the input for that command. So we can do something like sort and sort the contents of that file with sort less than and then the file name. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to show you some of this stuff. Just let's make it really fast because I want to get to something a little bit more practical in using these skills. So here we go. Let me get on my Kali machine. Maybe. There we go. Oh, I'll open up another terminal as well. Just be on my machine. Documents. So we'll just say demo. All right, so that was changing the directory. It moves very quick. I'm sorry. So here we are. We have everything in here because I was demonstrating like hacking into a specific machine before. So I'll just say digital natives. Why not? and then we'll go inside there. So here we can see and list everything. Nothing is in here. The dot, the single period, means here, and the dot dot means move up a directory. So go backwards. Right now I'm in my home directory, documents, demo, digital natives. If I do dot dot, I'm going to move back into the demo directory. Okay. All right. So what was the first one we talked about? We talked about touch. Look, no files are in here. I already showed you that. So touch, new file, and now there's a new file. There's nothing really crazy, incredible about it. If I do LSL, right, -L, we get the long listing, and you can see March 21st, 15:52 is the time. So if I do date right now, we see that the time has changed to 53. If I do touch again on it, oh, look, I'm pushing up. That's an easy way to do it, right? LS-L, you see the date time or the timestamp got updated. Nothing incredible to look at, I know, but you might see this. You might see an empty file get created, and then they want to pipe a bunch of stuff into it. But shh, that's like, listen, if you're new to this, like if you hit it really hard, maybe you'll see that in like a year, year and a half. But just know that I'm showing you this because I've been around a minute, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that's the basics. But holy crap, what they're doing with it. Anyway, so with that, if I do echo and I say, I don't know, just hello, everyone, right? All this does is it puts it to the standard output. You see it to the terminal screen. But hold on. But see, no new file, no nothing. It just threw it to the terminal output. If I cat new file, remember concatenate, read the file contents, there's nothing in here. Let me get back to my butt that I said 3 times. If I redirect that output into new file, I'm going to replace all of the contents. There's nothing in there, not a big deal, right? I put it in there. You don't see any output to the terminal. There's nothing that shows. However, now when I cat that new file, you see it inside of the file as contents. And again, let's say, hold on, let's just do hello, everyone. How are you? Now we'll cat it again. Oh, look. Hello, everyone. Now that's gone. How are you? Why is that gone? Because I did this single redirection. It replaced it. This is what they were doing when they did date in that log file. Don't do that. Now watch what happens. If I go back to hello, everyone, and I put 2, and I even do how are you, and I put 2, what does 2 do? It appends the data. Now, when I cat new file, I have the date timestamp. I have hello, everyone, and how are you? It is, again, stress how important. It might seem basic, but I'm talking like 6-figure engineers, all right? So keep it in mind. What else? So that was the redirections and some really basic commands. So let's go back to this, and we're going to enhance everything with what's called a pipe. A pipe takes command output, or it takes output and uses it as input for the next thing. Okay, that's output. Yes, I ran this command. That's output. It's going to take all of this and use it as input for whatever I do next. So say, for instance, I put the pipe and I just say sort. I want to sort it alphabetically. Well, now every single line that was that was in the output was used as input, and it was sorted. And I'm showing you like kind of I don't want to say it's super lame, because you're going to see where this comes in value like pretty quick. And yes, it does. But it just uses, I want you to understand, cat this file, that's the output. We're going to use that as input for the next thing. So that brings in searching. We're talking about using this in a SOC. We're talking about using this in information security and hacking and whatever. We're going to now search through files for important information. What if we have a giant log, right? Or what if we were sniffing on, I don't know, unencrypted traffic? I might want to take that output and grep for password? That'd be cool. Don't use Telnet, people. I'm telling you for a reason, right? Because it's as easy as that. If I'm sniffing on your network and I'm redirecting that to a file, well, guess what? I save that file off. I cat that file. I put a pipe there and I grep for password. And now I'm already in your network, but now I'm in your network devices. And I can do your administrative work for your switches and your routers and whatever else you were trying to access. It's pretty great. Now, dash I ignores case. All right, case sensitivity, because another really important thing that you need to know is Linux is absolutely 100% case sensitive. All right, here, let me show you that. I really like why show us this? Because if I touch file, right, and I touch file with a capital E, these are two separate files. Linux is like, oh no, those are totally different. You do this on Windows, it doesn't work because Windows is case insensitive. But boy, Linux is case sensitive to be sure. And let me remove that and that. With the RM command, just remove. And -V will ignore a string. So if you have like a line output of something that you're filtering through and you're like, I don't want to see that, you can do a -V to, yeah, just leave that out. I'm not worried about it. Just leave that out. Okay. Okay, let me go back. So could the greater than symbol be used routinely cycle an encryption plus key? I love it. Yeah. I actually show my students how to do rainbow tables. So that would be it depends on how you want to do it, but yeah, you could definitely I do the greater than to append a file to make a giant file that is a rainbow table. What is a rainbow table? Easily see what I'm saying, like hands on. A rainbow table, if let's say I'll locate rocku.txt. I know where it's at, but this is easier. So I'm just going to copy paste user share word. Oh my God. User share word list rocku.text.gz. I'm going to copy that right here. I'm going to gun zip it. I got to decompress this bad boy. Oh, no, not guzip, gun zip, G unzip. All right, so here's rocku.txt. Now, if I wanted to do a word count, WC, on rocku.txt, this is 1,434,000, oh my God, no, I messed that up bad. 14,344,392 lines, right? I can take and I can do like a script, or I could do this in the command line where, here, watch this cat. This thing is huge. It's just going to go, all right? It's going to go for quite a while. But I could take every single one of these passwords and run it through a hashing algorithm, append it to a file, and then that I can use to say, oh, hey, I found this encrypted, they're not encrypted, but this hashed password, right? I don't know what it is. Oh, well, let me look in here. Let me look in this file. And again, what does it do? It essentially just runs a grep. It runs that search for that hash and it says, I found it on this line. Oh, this is the password. That's a rainbow table attack right there. So I don't know how many times I'm going to say it, but the fundamentals here, you can string these together to do all sorts of things. So okay, Malaya, I'm gonna have to come back to you on that because I've been talking. I don't know which command you're talking about. But I do want to continue forward because I'm going to show you like the practicality of all of these things put together to build out a user list. And yes, so the up and down line is called a pipe. Is there a good source of commands to learn? Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, people are hooking you up on that. That's awesome. Does touch allow file naming? Well, if it doesn't exist, yes, you touch the file of whatever you want it to be named. To rename it, no, it just updates the timestamp, right? Now, Here are some stream editors, and not all of them are stream editors, but I'm going to put them all just the same. I mean, literally sed stands for stream editor, but these can be used to search for a string in a file or filter out output with that pipe. Sed can be used to replace text. Sed can do a lot of things. Same with awk. There are entire books literally written just for those two utilities. Okay, so I'm not going to go like crazy in depth. But there's another thing that's really, really helpful called cut. And you can specify delimiter with cut, just like awk, in order to get like specified fields for what you want as output. And I'll show you that with making the user list from the Etsy password file. Okay. Oh, yeah, here, hold on. There. Yeah, the recording will be provided when all of this is done after. Make sure you register at meetup.intellectualpoint.com, okay? All right, here we go. So check this out. If I cat Etsy password on my machine, I get all of this, right? Now I'm on my machine. This might not seem like, oh, what are you doing? It's not use. We're here. We're just talking about commands. We're just talking about parsing. We're talking about making something useful. Now, what's useful here? For me, what's a better way to look at it is what's not useful. What's not useful is that little ending right here that says user sbin no login. What does that mean? Well, generally speaking, like daemon here, a daemon, right, is something that I don't interact with. That's a system user. It doesn't have an interactive login. You don't log in with this user. It's just something that the system needs in terms of a user to run. So as a hacker, I don't care about anything that says no login. Right? No, I don't want that. I want to get rid of that. So what did I do to start this? I did cat Etsy password. Well, to take this output and use it as input for the next command, what do I use? I'll use a pipe. Well, what do I want to do? I want to ignore all of the output related to no login. So I'm just going to say, okay, if it says no login, I don't want it. If it says no login, I don't want it. So I'm going to type clear on my terminal, press up twice, then go back, and then I put that pipe and I do grep. Well, what's the ignore option? -V. That's how you ignore. So no login. Now I press enter again. See how much less this is right here? That's so much smaller. Now, what do I have? The sync? Okay, that's not it. Oh, look, bin false. I don't want bin false either. Let me just do another one. I'm taking this output and I'm going to use it as input to further filter this down. grep-v false. Now I only got this, right? Now sync, I don't want sync either. So I do it again and I ignore sync. So now I have 3 users that look like they have valid login shells. Why Postgres has a valid login shell, I don't know. That's actually new to me right now. I might want to look into that later. But user bin Z shell, it's a different, updated shell is the default shell that Kali Linux is using now. It's really great. But there's the root user, there's a Kali user, and the Postgres user is using bin bash. So maybe I can do some funky stuff with Postgres. I don't know. Now, I just want a user list. So I need to filter this out. There's a couple ways that I could do that. I could do this with, let's say, awk. And I use, again, what? I use this as the output. I'm using it as input for the next command. So I'm going to do awk, and I'll do -f for the field separator. Each one of these things is a field, okay? And what is that field separator? It's going to be the colon. Now I'm going to put this in curly braces, put a little single quotes, and then just print $1. I want the first field to be output. And now I have a valid user list. But this didn't create a file for me. So I take all of this process and I go back and I redirect that into user list.txt. Now, another thing about Linux, they don't give a crap about file extensions. You know, you can name it whatever you want. You can name it .exe and it'd still be the same. But now we see when I do ls, we have user list.txt. So if I cat that, excuse me, we have my user list. Now I can do, excuse me again. Now I can do stuff like for I in, you know, do some command expansion, cat user list, uh, do echo, you know, I don't know, $I, which is each line. This is just a habit I got into. I just always call it I, but for name and cat user list, right? I is going to be a line. So echo I colon password and then done. And now I have root colon password. If I wanted to do something like password spraying with basic authorization to a website, I would take this. Oh, you know what else I would do? Here. let me change it real quick. Well, yeah, now I'm getting into more practical stuff. If I take this and I put it into base 64, I now have basic web authorization values that I can send into a web server to log in. Check it out sometime. Go look at your headers. Go look at what you're sending on the old website. It used to be this, and that's all it is. It's the username colon the password, and they base 64 encode it. But I can use this for all sorts of different things. All sorts of different things. And I'm just showing you the filtering process of what I go to extract what's important, right, to me for my operations. Now, with that, let me go up. I promised you I'd show you cut, right? Cut works very similarly. So what is the output from before? It looked like this. I want to cut the first field. So you can also use cut. Use that as output. The output is input. And then this time it's D for delimiter. Delimiter is the thing that separates fields. Each and every single command and utility is going to have their own deal. So you got to learn all of them, right? How do you do that? Put your hands on the keyboards and do it. And then what field are we wanting to run? Or C, output the first one. So dash F for field, 1 for the first one. If I wanted the third one, for instance, I just put a 3, and then that's the third field, which is the user ID. Not that it matters, and that to me isn't useful. That what's useful to me is that user list. How can we use this if these are the usernames? Yes, I'm gonna show you. Anyone do one-on-one training? Hey, you know, like again, as Leanne was saying, intellectual point does training, but then group training, not one-on-one. So, yeah, no kidding, Tim. Hey, Tim. Could you use Kali as a daily driver for day-to-day use in hacking? Listen, you can do whatever you want. I wouldn't recommend it. I love Kali Linux. I love it, but I certainly do not use it as a daily driver. But you could, depending on what you're doing. As I said as well, I use a lot of applications that are Windows based, which sticks me to a Windows platform, and then I virtualize. Check this out. I virtualize all these bad boys right on top of my Windows machine. I'm not selling you Windows. I'm not trying to promote them or anything. But one of the things that I've always found, and I used to be one of these people where I'm like, oh no, Linux is superior in every way, and we're going to use it for everything, and Linux is going to lead the world. And yeah, sure it is. I mean, look how wherever it's at, it's all over the place. I don't need to worry about it, you know? But use the tools that make the most sense for what you need. And that's another strength of Linux distributions is they were like, well, I have a need for this, so I'm going to make this. And so they customize it and make their own deal. But yeah. Oh, okay. Quick check, everybody. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? All right. Yeah. Look at the chat go. Okay, I want to say something else, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna behave. I'm gonna behave a little better. I'm sorry. All right, where am I at? Nope. I gotta figure out which tab I'm on. Nope, gotta escape first. There we go. So that is making a user list based on a leaked Etsy password file. Now, I did it only on my system, and you're like, what can you do, with this? How is it, like, what else could I apply it to? Or what would you use these users for? I'm going to get to that. I promise, I promise, I promise I'll get to it. I know I got to hurry up, guys. So scripting, right? Scripting allows the automation of the task, and it has a little pound and an exclamation point. We call that a shebang, okay? But she and bang is the exclamation point. So this tells the Linux operating system what interpreter is going to be used. So if we do shebang bin bash, then it will be the bash shell used as an interpreter to run that script. If we use Python, then it'll use Python to run that script, so long as the execute bit is set and that you run it without specifying the interpreter yourself. So the commands that we just did, those can be used in a script instead. So also scripts, you do programming logic, you can do, if else, you can do while loops, you can do functions, you can obviously do variables inside of it. It opens up the world of the capability of things that you can do, the orders of things, the options that you put, the sequence that things go in. It really, really opens up the efficacy of what you are capable of. And it saves time. Remember, I was talking about linps before? Nobody is writing this from scratch anymore. He or she already did it. I'm presuming it's a he, but they already did it. All right. So you just push that into your system, you execute it, and then you just sit there and you look at all the pretty colors and you say, oh, wow, look at all these things. Now you go analyze all that information. To do what you got to do for privilege escalation. So you remember this right here? I did oh, no, you know what? I'm going to do one. Watch. Watch this. Ready? I'm just going to take that. I'm going to grab that. Now I'm going to mess it up. Now, vi, let's just say user list creator. .sh. .sh is a courtesy to other people to let them know that it's a shell script. And then look, shebang /bin / not bin again, bash. All right. And then what did I say? The commands you just typed can be put into a script. So I just look, copy paste. That's all I did. That's all I did. Nothing fancy. You already saw my logic and what I was doing to make the commands. I'm not going to waste time. Now I'm going to add the execute bit, chmod, change modality, change mode of the user list creator.sh script. Now look, see? ls-l, I got that little X on everybody. Anybody can execute this guy right here. That's good. How do I execute scripts and programs in Linux if it's not in the path variable? Listen, if you want to know more about this, like sign up for one of my classes. It'll be great. But I'm going to put a period / and then the script name, and I'll execute it, and boom, it did it for me right then and there. You see how much faster that was? So now that I have a user list creator, I just throw that into a system and then I click on it and then I'm good, right? Now, I don't know. I'm not that efficient, I guess. I like typing a lot. But the capabilities, capabilities, right? Okay. No, I think they'd get mad at me if I took another hour. I'd love to, but no. So how can we access a remote Linux server? Well, we can do it in multiple different ways. We can use a protocol called SSH Secure Shell. Again, don't use Telnet. All right. Apparently, it's still out and about in the world. If you're in one of those networks, and you have any sway, tell them, listen, hey, this is secure. RedHatAugust said, don't do this. Unless they want to contract me for a pen test, then hell yeah. Tell them to do it harder when I'm in there so I can get those creds. Please, that'd be great. Make my job easy. There's also X-Free RDP or our desktop, free RDP, whatever. This is the RDP protocol, right? The remote desktop protocol to get in, and this provides a graphical user interface. There's more setup involved for this to happen on the receiving side as well, to make sure that it's enabled. And same thing with that's supposed to say VNC viewer. I'm sorry, that's my bad. I had a little typo there. VNC viewer is going to be a graphical user interface as well, but it's going on the VNC protocol. Are we going to go over those protocols? No. But SSH, I want to dive a little deeper into SSH. So the basic syntax of SSH is that you type SSH, the username, at whatever that remote machine is. The remote machine can be a name, it can be an IP address, and then it's going to say, hey, we need to put in the fingerprint, whatever, and you say yes, or well, you say yes if you want to do it, and then it'll prompt you for a password. So you enter that password. Then you log in to that remote system. Okay, that's it. SSH user at remote machine, you provide the password, you're logged in. However, what you should not ever, ever, ever do with SSH, and yes, there's a reason why I'm saying this, and yes, I've seen this around a lot, is use a utility called SSH pass. Just don't. Just don't. All right. Why? Because the syntax for this is SSH pass -p your password, SSH username at remote machine. Why does this even exist? Well, it's because when you're developing a script or an application, that whole providing the password, remember how I talked about interactive and non-interactive shells? Well, when it's prompting you for a password, your application will just sit there. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. It's asking me for something I don't know. And so it just hangs. So they developed SSH pass to automatically pass that password into that SSH connection to continue forward. Why am I telling you not to use this? Because when you put passwords in your configuration files as a developer, if somebody like me gets into your network and I can read it, I now have SSH credentials. I can use that for a horizontal escalation. I mean, it's not really an escalation, but this is what we call it, right? So it's a privilege shift. Now I'm a different user that might have different permissions into different other parts of the system, or maybe they're in the sudoers file, which means they can elevate to root and do other things. You know, I have a better foothold if you give me something like that. And I was in with like a system user or a different user, right? The other thing too is if I get in on a system, there's something called history. Check this out. If I do history, these are all the commands that I typed. And so my history in my machine isn't getting cleared. And this is very common in Linux, which means even if you're not storing it in a configuration, if you use SSH pass, I just do history, grep pass, and then I'll see your password in plain text in the history, and I'll be doing the same thing. Don't do it. Don't do it. But you're saying, Anthony, why, this had a reason that was there. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I already said why not, so I'm just gonna skip over this. But what can I do? You can do what's called generating a public-private key pair. Just generate a public-private key pair. Okay, how do I do that? Well, actually, before I do that, what the heck does that even mean? Now we're using public-private key pair authentication, which means we're using encryption. I have a private key. You keep that to yourself, right? Keep your private key to yourself. Then you have a public key, which you can share with everybody. It's public. Nobody cares. That's the one that you want to give everybody. That's a shareable one. The private key can encrypt data. That data can be decrypted with the public key. Your public key can encrypt that data and be decrypted with your private key. These are two different mechanisms of PKI, right? Of using encryption and that authentication to enhance security. So just do it. And guess what? When you set this up, you don't need a password to log in. You just SSH user at whatever that machine is, and you're done. No password prompt anymore. And it's using something that is more secure, much, much more secure. All right. And again, never share that private key. So how do we do this? We first run SSH-keygen. You literally, that's all you do. You can change the encryption type with -t option if you want to make it more secure, such as ECDSA, elliptical curve, DCA. All right. Then you do SSH copy ID username at remote machine, and this will function just like a normal SSH, where it says, hey, do you want to store the fingerprint? Yes. Do you want to Do you want to log in? Here, give me a password. So it prompts you for that password. You put in the password, and then it logs in and it transfers that public key in a very specific way. So and then it just logs out. And then after that, all you got to do is SSH username at remote machine, and you are going back and forth. It's really good. All right, let's see. Oh gosh. Does that say, or does that SSH machine you're trying to log into always have the SSH server already? Yeah, you got to have the SSH service running on that remote machine for it to work. Absolutely. And undetectable? No, 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 no. No, this isn't going to be undetectable. There'll be logins, like login logs for that. And we'll get to that in a moment too. Cat Etsy password, will this allow, or will this also show virtual login attempts or only local physical attempts? Ooh, Jeremiah, great question. The Etsy password doesn't show login attempts at all. It's just the user list and some information for the local users on that system. But if you're talking about something like, hey, I have a web application and I'm logging in with that, that's probably going to be reaching into a database that's owned by that application, and it is separate than the actual Linux system itself, which is why you don't use SSH pass. If I break into your web server and I can start executing code and I go in and I'm all of a sudden data, which is a system user, and then you have SSH pass somewhere lying about, then yeah, now I can become an actual user. I can be a real boy. All right, so now when I do this, right, or when you do this, whatever, when this process happens, it's going to create on the local system in the home directory, whatever user you're doing that in .ssh, it'll create ID RSA or ID ECDSI or whatever type, whatever algorithm you use for that encryption. Now, if these are leaked, meaning like maybe I can do like a file inclusion attack and I say, hey, I'm going to get this, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe you want to look into that. Maybe you want to use ID ECDSA. Just saying, just saying. Not everything is ID RSA. And that's the hacker mentality. What can I do? I can leverage these keys to gain access to that exact system as well. So it's not foolproof, but oh my God, it is so much better than putting your passwords in plain text in configuration files for applications or having it in your history. But don't do that, all right? It's much easier to secure the control of this than, than it is to like, listen, just again, so much easier for me to look at the history, so much easier for me to see a configuration file with the password in it than it is for me to get that. It's a lot easier for you to prevent me gaining this kind of access if you're doing this. All right, so how are we doing on time? Yeah, I'm just going to keep moving. So Linux log files, y'all are talking about logs and detection and what that looks like. These typically, based on the file system hierarchy standard, are stored in var log. There's two different distributions that are generally used, and everything derives off of these two distributions. There's a Red Hat distribution, RedHatAugust, yeah, and then there's Debian, which everything goes from these two. It's oversimplified, I get it, but if you think about that, there's thousands of distributions. Generally, that's what's happening. So for authentication, logging in for Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems, you're going to be looking at var log secure. On Debian-based systems, you're going to look at var log auth.log. For web logs, I put directories here. That's why there's that / at the end. So it's going to be var log httpd / and then there'll be logs inside of there. And then in Debian, it's Apache 2 / and there's files inside there. We're actually going to be looking on a Debian-based system. We are going to be looking at some web logs to identify some malicious traffic. And by the way, I might have a treat for you. The world might have a treat for me. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. So authentication, dang it, hold on. Oh, so system logs, that's not, oh gosh, I should have reread this 5 times, huh? System logs, Red Hat Enterprise Linux will have messages. That's like overall what's happening on the system, just, what's happening to boot, what's happening with, just everything, right? Is a huge file. But it's var log messages. And then in Debian, it's var log syslog for the for the installation logs, the application manager logs, it's going to be Red Hat Enterprise Linux's yum.log and dnf.log. DNF is just the new version of yum. Okay, the commands are the same. Don't be scared. It's just the new and improved one. And then in Debian, it's dpkg.log. Now, the web logs that we're going to be looking at are access.log and error.log. So let me break that down. Access.log is in what's called a combined format. To understand what a combined format is, we need to look at common log format first. So the setting for this is as follows, where we have the log format, we have all of these percent, I'll call them declarations, if you will. These stand for things, and that's common. So here's an example of that. 127.0.0.1 dash frank. Here's a date time, get Apache underscore pb.gif, http /1.0 200 2326. Now breaking this down, the 127.0.0.1, that %h is the host that's making the web request. So what is the host that's talking to me as a web server? All right, so in this case, the web server is talking to itself. Now, the dash, the %L, is not really used, so I didn't put any information there. It's a very, very, very specific use case. So in most cases, you just say, okay, it's a dash, it's a placeholder to put in the common log format. Then frank right here is the %U for the user ID, if applicable. And you'll see that this is like if it's logged in, the user is logged in to your web application, this will be populated. If it's just a public application with no login, then it's just going to be, again, another dash. It doesn't apply. So then the %T is the time, and then the symbols, well, the backslash, %R, backslash, right? That is going to be the request that's being made to the server. That's the request being made from this host to the server. And then the status code is displayed. And then the last thing is the size of the object returned to this host, right, in terms of bytes. So 2326 is, 2.3 megabytes or kilobytes, excuse me, about. Now we have combined log format, which essentially is the same, except at the end, they added a refer and they also added the user agent. The refer is saying, hey, where is this at? Where is it coming from, right? What referred this to here? And then the last one is the user agent. The user agent header is to identify what kind of browser or what kind of operating system is making the request. User agents from a developer standpoint is to allow for compatibility for different browsers and operating systems to how they display your web pages to them. You want to make sure that everything looks good. What if they're on a mobile device, right? You would use the user agent for the mobile device to display them the website in a specific way. This also can be used for like bots, right? So Google will have its own user engine, it's going through and it's indexing a bunch of pages and say, okay, we can block this user agent with the robots.txt file. So that's the user agent field. Now, I'm going to conduct a directory traversal and we're going to see what happens here. But what a directory, well, you know what? Let's just go straight to it. Let's just do the directory traversal. I'll tell you what it is as we do it. So I have a system here called DVWA. That's Damn Vulnerable Web Application. This is specifically built as a vulnerable web app for you to practice any type of web application attacks. Go to the OWASP top 10, go check out what they're talking about, go here, put it in action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to file inclusion. Apparently I need to log in again. And yes, before you all call me out on it, I know my creds are amazing. Thank you. And yes, I did that on purpose as well. So here we go. We have file inclusion. We can just click on the first one to test it out. And even though it's really hard to see up here, you know, what do we got? We got hello admin, your IP address is that. Hey, don't take me down, all right? But we have this right here. Question mark page equals file1.php. Well, this is indicative that maybe, just maybe, I can do what's called a file inclusion. File1.php is a file on the web server. So what is a directory traversal? A directory traversal literally is me moving back, right? How do I move back? I put a ... / Well, what the goal is here is I don't know the structure of the website, right? The web server. Usually it's var www HTML, but it isn't always like that. So I need to move back a directory and then move back a directory and then move back a directory until I hit the root of the file system, the very beginning of all of the files and directories of the entire operating system. There's no like real number, but I like to say 7. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I should be hitting the root of that web server. Now, if I put 80 of these, it makes no difference. I cannot move any further back than the root of the server. So, you know, but let's try to be a little efficient with it. I'll just put 7, and even that might be overkill, but a good rule of thumb. And then what file am I going to look for? You got it. Etsy password. So here on this system, which is remote to me, this isn't my system anymore. I now have the Etsy password file, and I can copy this and I can paste it into Word document. I can filter it out, or I could add new lines for every space. And I'd use sed to do that. Find a space, change it with a new line if I wanted to copy paste it like this. After that, let's do that whole user list creator. And then I will get all of the accounts in the system that can be logged into, that have a valid login shell. So this is the attack right here in a GET request. All of this happened in the URL, right? It happened in this URL box. Doesn't always happen like this. You could put it in like a text field or some type of input, but you'd essentially be doing the same thing. Now, what's the point here? That's the attack. I just attacked the system. Now, I am root on this system here. Okay, this is the DVWA server. And if I go into cd var log, right, what was I telling you before? We're going to go into Apache 2. And this is where the surprises might come in. You might see some really cool stuff. Not what I'm showing you. I mean, let's find out. I'm thrilled. But we were talking about access.log. Check this out. If I just do cat, I cat the whole thing. You know, it doesn't look like much, but you know, not too many people are trying to access the system. Not too many people are trying to access the system. And then yeah, this is fun. So why is it fun? Those are bots actively scanning the system. It's amazing. So what do I want to filter on? Look, remember we talked about grep? We do grep, and then what is our search? Well, the only thing that we're worried about is ... We want to move back a directory. That is the key indicator here that, you know, it's an indicator of an attack. It doesn't mean that it's been compromised quite yet. We're going to verify that. We're going to validate that. But we'll do grep ... on what? The access log. Now, I'm doing this wrong on purpose. Right? You're like, you got all the same output. It didn't filter it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm doing this on purpose because there's something called an escape character. The period in regular expressions is a special symbol that is, you know, interpreted as something else. So I need to say literally a dot, literally a dot. And now when I do it, I have the evidence here that from my IP address, I have done a directory traversal. And guess what? Now I can validate it as an indicator of compromise because there is a status 200 return. Now, on my machine, this is my user agent here, and I'm curious about this. Now I'm just kind of going on a tangent. Let me cat that again. And let's see. Let me actually analyze this really fast. Okay, we have 1. If I make that a delimiter, here's 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So if I do that, this is 1, 2, right, 2, 3, 4, 5. This should be the 6th field. So if I do cut -D, and then I'm going to make it, I know it's weird, a single quote, double quote, single quote to make the delimiter the double quote. And then I do F6. These are the user agents that are attempting at the very least to connect to the system. And sometimes looking at these user agents can tell us a little bit of a story. You see that there's somebody using a Mac, allegedly, but they're using Firefox on that Apple device to access or attempt to access this. I'm trying to see if that one bot is still trying to hit this. Unfortunately not, but that's okay. So, but you're already seeing, what am I doing? I'm searching in the thing, I'm filtering it out, I'm looking for interesting data. What do you do? In security, on the blue side or whatever, you're looking for indicators of attack, indicators of compromise, and you're filtering out these logs as part of it, and seeing if it worked. And in this case, it did. I'll go back up again. And you see, yeah, this happened at Passwood. It was 2006 bytes, and it was successful. All right. Oh gosh, hold on. I'm going in the Great. Can I talk a little bit more about the refer? I don't want to spend too much time on that because it is already 4:40, and I want to explain the next part. Um, but we are accessing the root of the web server, and it's like the last site that came from it. Now, if there is no last site, then like somebody clicked on something, then it should be the server itself, as far as I'm aware. Which Kali Linux is best to download for a Windows laptop? That would be the installation. Let Chris remind me of your question closer to when we're finished. I'll just go to Kali.org and tell you which one to grab. What was the significance of status 200 again? It means it was a success. The web server said it was okay. This is good, right? Everything, like, I'm giving you this information. Oh, thank you, Ayana. Awesome. I want to work on it, but some of these downloads seem sketchy. If you're doing Kali.org, it'll be fine, but do understand your antivirus and, browser guard might be going nuts because what are you downloading? Hacking distribution that has what? Hacking tools on it. So yeah, sometimes Microsoft gets a little wild here with Kali and there's like, no, we're not doing it. And then OffSec has to talk to them and say, hey, you guys know us, you know what we're doing. And then they open it back up. Now, we're going to look at the other one for a different attack. We're going to now talk about the error.log. However, to get valuable information here, make sure that you're enhancing your login levels. You may have to do this that is not on the default installation in order to see the things that are happening. Now, the first thing is you're going to enable a module called dump.io. All right, so just imagine like you have this little extension to your log. You're enabling that so you can read more information. You're looking for the input output dumps, meaning the data that is happening underneath the hood. If you don't do this, you're not going to see the cool things that I'm about to show you, which means that if somebody like me does this or anybody else, all those attacks go undetected. You'll see the request, but you won't see what I did. Then in your etc apache2 apache2.conf file, your configuration file, make sure that you change the log level to info, dump.io :trace7 with dump.io input on, dump.io output on, and that's literally going to be these 3 lines in that appropriate section to make sure that this is all working. Now, what's the next thing that I want to cover is command injections. What is a command injection? It means that if there is anything in input where I can take, like an input field of some sort. It could be in a GET request, it could be a text box, it could be in a form, whatever. It doesn't matter. But if I can inject my input, can I terminate your command, right? Is your application running a command? Can I terminate your command or do a command in the same line? And some very common characters that are used in command injections are as follows. Now, I put the URL encoding. I put the hexadecimal here with the percent in front of it. But there's the pipe, there's the semicolon, there's the ampersand, there's a dollar sign, the greater than, the less than symbol, a single quote, and an exclamation point. Why did I put this in there? I'm about to show you. Because we are going to have to look for that in the error log. So nope, we're not there yet. All right, hold on. Please hold. So what are we going to do? We're going to go here. Let's back out of this and we'll go to command injection. Okay, because that's what we're going to do. Now, what does this say? It says ping a device, a very typical thing. Let me show you in the terminal what it's doing in my terminal. If I say ping 127.0.0.1, but I'm going to put a count on it of 4 because that's what it's doing. All right, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it stops and it says, "Hey, 0 packet lock. You're able to ping yourself." Woohoo! Right? But watch. If I put a semicolon at the end of that, I can execute another command in the same line. So it does a thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, gives me my status, and look, this is the listing of my current directory. Why am I bringing that up in the terminal? Because that's how it works. That's what's going on under the hood. When I do, I ping 127.0.0.1, and I submit that, just waiting, and there it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the information. So this is working as designed. But if I do one of those symbols, all right, and I'm just going to stick with the semicolon to keep things easier. If I do 127.0.0.1, and then I do the semicolon and I say, oh, I don't know, cat Etsy password just to do it again, and I press enter, it does that. And look, I have the Etsy password system, or the Etsy password file for this system right here. But that's not all I can do. That's not all I can do. If I don't want to waste so much time with this, I can terminate it early. That looks like this. Ping-C4, and then I just terminate it with no IP address at all. And it errors out. It has an error there, but look, I immediately have the list of my current directory. Oh my God, hold on a second. Yes, I know. Okay, whatever, I'll deal with you later. So I can terminate this early and I can list the current directory I'm in. Help index.php source. Well, where is this? PWD, print the working directory. I'm in var www HTML dvwa vulnerabilities exec. I can even download files from my server into this server so long as I have a public IP. All right. What does that mean? I can weaponize payloads. I'm hosting a web server and I can wget a file into here and then I can execute it. So you've seen a lot of different of these command injections. Let's go take a look at the log. There we go. I'm going to go back and here we are. So what file was this? It was error.log. And if I cat this file, again, with that dump.io module added and, the enhancements, man, there's a lot of information coming in here. But what am I going to search for? If I do grep on the semicolon in error.log, that's no good. right? There's a lot of semicolons in this file. It doesn't really help me. And even so, you're going to realize that, here, let me grep PWD in this. But how are we going to know that an attacker did PWD? We don't really know that, right? We don't really know that. But we see the PWD here. And if you look at IP equals %3B plus PWD, there is no semicolon in that. It's URL encoded. That's why I gave you the list of URL encoding. And we have a very specific command that we can just capture all of them. Egrep all of this, and then error.log. So let me see if I still have that in my history. So history, grep, egrep, and here it is, 208. So I'm just going to copy and paste that into place. Just easier that way. But let's see if we can find some fun. So here we go. It's only what I did with this particular server. But again, with this being public, if you're analyzing your logs and you have a honeypot like this, you can see what the bots are doing. And I assure you, I found some active traffic, malicious traffic, hosting malware, trying to send some really interesting stuff to the server. And this is how I detected it. Because what's going on? I filtered, oh, the 3B hit. And egrep is expression grep, meaning I can do multiple different searches all on the same line instead of having to do them separate. Okay. I'm going to leave you guys with the YouTube suggestions. How do you check the hash? Ooh, great question. I'll cover that too. That's valid. But this is how we can detect potential things that are going on for command injections, an indicator of attack. So here's that. I go back and all right. Now I see that there were questions. Let me get out of this real quick. Let me go to that slide. I definitely want to answer them, but let me answer some of the questions of which I was asked first. So let me grab a new tab and I'll drag it over here. Okay. If you go to kali.org, the question was, if I want to install this on a laptop, what's the best one for me to pick? If I click download, it'll say installer images. There's a ton of different ways that we can install Kali Linux because Kali is literally available for so many different platforms, mobile, like ARM-based processors, mobile. You can put freaking Kali on a watch. It's a specific watch or maybe a set of watches, but they're doing development there. You can have it in the cloud. You have it in virtual machines, containers, a live boot, meaning if you have a USB drive that you plug into a computer, you can boot to that USB. And then, of course, WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux, you can have it on there as well. But you're going to click installer images, okay? And just choose the recommended one. Install that, burn it to a DVD, slap that DVD in, or put it on a USB with something like Rufus and install it from there. There's really great documentation that's in here on how to do that, and they have the questions underneath. So click on those links for the tutorials. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to do with all of your internet downloads is like this, is make sure you click on sum or check the checksum. And here it's a SHA-256 sum. It has this value. So after you download it, go ahead and make sure you're running a checksum on it. There's how to do it in a Linux system. I'm always typing the wrong password anymore. And again. There we go. Third time's a charm, right? So how do you do that? It's very, very simple. If I want to do rocku.txt, it's SHA-256 sum. That's the command. And then the file. Press enter. And then you would compare this value with the value that's on the screen. Now, to do it in Windows, you would execute PowerShell. Hold on. And then I want to say, here, let's go into dir. Let's go into my project, a very special project I made 3 years ago. And we'll go into other, into 2016. And then I have like a vagrant file right here. Okay. I believe it's get file hash. And then you would specify -A for the algorithm. I can't make this bigger. Oh, no, I can. I lied. -A, and I want to say it's going to be SHA-256, I think, and then you would specify the file with that. And then you would compare this value with, again, the one on the site. So if you're doing it in PowerShell, hold on a second, let me put that here. PowerShell, it is that. Linux, it is that. Boom, there you go. Okay, so let me clear out of this. What was the other question? Hold on a second. No, God, I gotta scroll up. Yeah, all right. You saw the questions page. All right, yep, we're good on that. Can we get a link? Okay, yes. Again, we're going to repeat it again. Go to meetup.intellectualpoint.com. Make sure you're registered. That's how you're going to get the video, and that's also how you're going to get the certificate for participation to get those CPEs, CEUs, CEs, CUs, whatever the certifying body wants to call them. Can you pass LPI Linux Essentials with this recording? I'm sorry, Edward, but no, you cannot. But definitely we use a lot of these skills, but there is a lot more to Linux. Okay, like it's good, but it is a bit intensive. Um, do you need to have separate Windows system than your primary working Windows machine? No, like that's why I use VirtualBox. I have all of my VMs in here, and then of course I like to up my processor and my RAM so that I can run multiple machines within my machine. And I'm showing you everything all on the same computer, right? So right now I'm only running one, but sometimes I'll run like 2 to 4. It depends on what I'm doing. Please tell me this is also included in the recording. I'm not sure what this is. Uh, you should do another meeting with you or with just downloading a VM, installing Kali Linux. Great idea, Eric. Screen is too small. I'm presuming you were seeing that with PowerShell. I made it larger. Would I recommend purchasing a Linux machine? Okay, so I'd recommend you purchase a computer if you you don't have one. Make sure it's not, like an M1 or M2 Mac chip thing, because those are very problematic when it comes to virtualization. Also make sure your processor does virtualization, and then just put up VMs like this. And if you can do it on your home computer already, then more power to you. I just do that. But if somebody tries to sell you a Linux distribution, like, do understand that most of them are free as in free beer as well. Like Kali Linux is totally free to download and do all the stuff. But when the Free Software Foundation and FOSS, the free and open source software movement happened, then they're talking about free as in freedom to do a lot of things. But yes, generally speaking, um, they're free as in free beer as well. Is my course based on CompTIA? Absolutely 100%. 100%. I'm still looking for a job, so I build my virtual lab. For everybody trying to install Linux, please and please make sure it has enough RAM. Yes. Make sure you check out your stats, what's going on your computer before you start running stuff and freeze your computer up. Could we use AWS EC2 instance to run SSH? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I actually, somebody that hired me at OffSec, he's in a different country, but he liked watching a lot of American TV shows. So it's funny. He showed me an AWS instant that he had on free tier that he used as an SSH proxy to essentially stream Netflix so that he could get the American shows, because in his country the American shows were blocked. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you providing the link. 128 gigabytes of RAM. If you have that kind of capital, then I definitely be willing for some of that. Thank you. Maybe a little bit much. All right, can I bring the slide before the question slide? Yeah, let me go there. So there you go. There's that. Oh, and I had like an example here. From this, they're doing LS, or they're running LS. They ran Who Am I, print working directory. They checked the IP of the system, and those were the commands of which they injected. Use Oracle VMware VirtualBox. Find a good ISO on their site. It's all free. Yeah, VirtualBox is good. Will a terabyte be enough? Wesley, come on now. Again, I wish I had that. Okay, career-wise, career change from non-technical IT background. You're enrolled in Linux the first of 3 semesters, plus Linux networking, local community college. Good, glad to hear it. With this baseline, are career entry jobs possible? How about skill set to be able to get into cloud administration? Um, for me, my understanding of cloud administration, my experience with it, is that if you get proficient with using like virtual machine managers like this, you actually are really, really far ahead of a lot of other people. To me, it was surprising, but I was like, oh no, I don't know how to build an internal cloud, and I don't know how to run VMware and vCenter and all this other stuff. Um, and yeah, I have experience with Hyper-V and AWS and whatever, right? Like, but if you know it at this level, uh, don't don't lose your confidence. You know what you're doing already. I'm telling you, when I did vCenter, I was like, this is it. That's all. I thought there was like magic to this. There's no magic. So yeah, you can definitely do that. Are there jobs that you can get with um like the Linux Plus certification? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that one of my students was offered a 6-figure job just because of the Linux Plus certification. So that was cool. Very proud of them. And, but I am going to tell you this. Don't go into an interview being like, yeah, I took a class. That's not how I roll. Like, I might have taught you, but if you're going to do that, don't tell them I taught you. Because if you didn't learn it and you don't know how to do it, then, well, you didn't do the, the teaching part didn't happen very well. So make sure you know what you're doing and you practice. How do we practice? Get our hands on that keyboard. Hack NASA with HTML. Um, uh-huh. Listen, man. Yeah, listen, with HTML, don't know about that. Hacking NASA, if in permission in writing, then fine. Sure. Go ahead. All right, can AWS multi-cloud help or hurt? I don't see why it would hurt. I think that'd be great. Yeah, if you can get it. The more skills you get, and if you can show a practicality that you're able to do it, it just makes you stronger. But make sure you can prove it. Walk the talk. What class do you teach and when it's available? We still got to negotiate that, but generally I've been running the Linux Plus courses with Intellectual Point. So you're just going to have to check the schedule and see what's going on. I'm not sure when they're offering the next one, and I'm also not sure about other offerings that I may be able to step in, but obviously I have a security background, so there's other courses that they have that I could, if the need comes up. 16 gigs insufficient? No, I think 16 gigs is good. That's actually to do this whole presentation, right? I could have done this on 16 gigs. I think I'm earning 32 right now. So if you can front the, 150 bucks to upgrade your stuff, 32 is pretty good. But yeah, you can do virtualization with 16. You can, but it would be a little better 32. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Awesome. Well, I am going to tell you all this before you go. If you liked the presentation today, if you liked the examples, the demonstrations, the attacks, the defense, all of it, please let our CEO, his name is Prem, all right? You can message him at prem@intellectualpoint.com. But let him know that you liked it and you'd like to see more, or give him suggestions of other ideas that you'd like to see in the future. Miss Prem. Okay. Well, Is he not in this presentation? I am not sure. I think it was just Leanne and myself, but I'm here. I'm here to share my knowledge and information. And thank you all for coming. You know, I really appreciate you guys' time and to be able to share this with you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. The certificates and the follow-up email will come probably by sometime next week. Hopefully by Monday. Depends on how busy things get. But yes, thank you so much, guys. Alrighty. Have a good night.